Headed into this offseason, the New York Knicks were one of the main teams to watch. If for nothing else, it was because they were linked to a number of different All-Stars. But they failed to execute any type of trade as of yet, and they look content heading into next season with a similar roster to what they had last season. But that doesn't stop the trade reports from coming out. And one report from NBA Analysis Network had the New York Knicks potentially trading with the New Orleans Pelicans for one of their All-Stars. And I'm not talking about Zion Williamson. We're going to break down all of this and so much more today on the Knicks Digest. I know what you're thinking. I said trade with New Orleans, but I didn't mention Zion Williamson? So who could I be talking about? Well, according to NBA Analysis Network, they were thinking about centering a trade around RJ Barrett for Brandon Ingram. Now, I'm going to take a look at this trade with you guys shortly, so we can take a look at what it would take the Knicks to get Brandon Ingram on the Knicks and what the deal would look like. But when I first heard this, I thought to myself, they're likely not going to include Julius in this deal because there's no way they're going to want a return tour with Julius in New Orleans. So then I thought, would a front court of him and Brandon Ingram work? And I didn't like the sound of that. But let's first, before we judge it all, take a look at the deal. So let's take a look at what the Knicks would have to give up in a potential Brandon Ingram deal. So this is the trade proposal by NBA Analysis Network. They have the New Orleans Pelicans receiving guard/forward RJ Barrett, a 2026 first-round pick from the New York Knicks that's probably likely unprotected, a 2028 first-round pick from the New York Knicks, again, likely unprotected. I know what you're thinking. I said trade with New Orleans, but I didn't mention Zion Williamson? So who could I be talking about? Well, according to NBA Analysis Network, they were thinking about centering a trade around RJ Barrett for Brandon Ingram. Now, I'm going to take a look at this trade with you guys shortly, so we can take a look at what it would take the Knicks to get Brandon Ingram on the Knicks and what the deal would look like. But when I first heard this, I thought to myself, they're likely not going to include Julius in this deal because there's no way they're going to want a return tour with Julius in New Orleans. So then I thought, would a front court of him and Brandon Ingram work? And I didn't like the sound of that. But let's first, before we judge it all, take a look at the deal. So let's take a look at what the Knicks would have to give up in a potential Brandon Ingram deal. So this is the trade proposal by NBA Analysis Network. They have the New Orleans Pelicans receiving guard/forward RJ Barrett, a 2026 first-round pick from the New York Knicks that's probably likely unprotected, a 2028 first-round pick from the New York Knicks, again, likely unprotected, and then it's a 2029 first-round pick swap with the New York Knicks, and the New York Knicks would receive forward Brandon Ingram. Now, some of the Knicks fans out there are salivating at this potential trade offer because they can't help but include RJ Barrett in any type of deal, regardless of picks involved and regardless of fit. Because in my opinion, even if you could get this deal done, which I don't think the Pelicans would even entertain this deal, but let's say they would, and you got this deal done, you want a front court of Randle and Ingram? And let's say they don't do that and they move Ingram to the 3, out of his position, keep Randle at the 4, and then include Mitch. You want all of that in a lineup? I would make the argument that Julius Randle and Brandon Ingram in a front court, if you're playing small, or even if you're not and you want to include Mitch in there, I would say that the spacing wouldn't work. It wouldn't work with Randle because Randle, again, is a more heavy ISO player. And one thing you have to ask yourself is, would Randle consider himself a better or worse player than Brandon Ingram is right now? Because I think you'd have to think about that with Julius Randle. Because I don't think Julius Randle would mind giving up his spot in terms of being a number 2 on a team to potentially being a number 3 on a team if the Knicks traded for a bigger star. But if they traded for Brandon Ingram, would Randle be okay conceding that Ingram is the better player and allow Ingram to play the number 2 role on a team and he would be comfortable playing the 3 role on a team? Do you think that would be possible? Because I think Randle might think that he's already a better player than Brandon Ingram. And if that's the case, if the Knicks trade for him, I see a clash in that front court. And I don't see it working because Brandon Ingram needs the ball in his hands to be effective. Not saying he can't play off ball, not saying he can't pass the ball, because he is a great passer as well too, and I like his defense because he can play that very well, especially when he wants to play defense and he's locked in. I think he can make a committed effort on defense, especially under Tom Thibodeau. So you can sell me on that. But that's the magic question, right? The question really becomes, would the Knicks do the trade with the New Orleans Pelicans to trade RJ Barrett away in order to get Brandon Ingram on this team? I don't believe so, but before I give a more in-depth take about why I don't feel that way, let me first go ahead and get into NBA Analysis Network's explanation on why they believe the New York Knicks would do the deal. Now, according to them, they think that Ingram would be a perfect fit with the rest of this roster. The Knicks would be putting the finishing touches on a team with title aspirations. After all, Ingram is an outstanding shot creator. He can score in high volume with great efficiency. This is one of the most dynamic offensive wings in the NBA. Ingram should make the Knicks a much better team. So that's what they believe in regards to why they think the New York Knicks should do the deal. But in my opinion, I think a front court with Julius Randle and Brandon Ingram would not work at all. And I think that's because, as they stated, when Brandon Ingram has the ball in his hands, he is very efficient, but he takes a lot of shots and he's high volume with those shots as well too. And if he's going to play with Julius Randle plays heavy ISO ball. We've never seen Julius Randle be a number 3 on a New York Knicks team. And I think it might be hard for Randle to do that, especially when a couple of seasons ago, he was the face of the Knicks. And now Jalen Brunson is, and he's taken a step back behind Jalen Brunson. I don't know if Ingram was traded to this team, if Julius Randle would think that Ingram was a better player than he was. And if he didn't feel that way, I don't think he would take that number 3 role on this New York Knicks team. I think he would still command that number 2 role. And if you trade for Ingram, Ingram needs to be the clear number 2 behind Jalen Brunson because you traded away RJ Barrett in the deal. So I think that would have to be the case. Even though they argue that the fit would be perfect, I would argue that the fit would be horrible. I would not want to see Brandon Ingram and Julius Randle playing on the same team. If anything, if you could sell me Randle going in that deal, we keeping RJ Barrett and getting Brandon Ingram on this team, I might want to do that deal. Only because I feel like that type of unit would fit better and play better together. Remember, I'm not taking away talent or skill here. And I'm not saying that Randle's a bad player. What I'm saying is, I think the fit of Brandon Ingram and Randle doesn't work. But I think Ingram, RJ Barrett, and Jalen Brunson, I think that fit works much better than Randle does within that group. But that's just my opinion though, and it's based off of Ingram's play style throughout his career, and it's also based off of Julius and his play style throughout his career, especially with the New York Knicks. So you have to factor that in there. But NBA Analysis Network was not done there. They also expressed why they believe the Pelicans would do the deal. And according to them, the Pelicans would have some value adding Barrett as well. He and Williamson were college teammates. They've got some pre-existing chemistry together, and in a world where Barrett hits his stride and Williamson gets his body right, this deal could keep the Pelicans relevant and add to their already impressive collections of draft capital. They'll have high expectations if that's how this shakes out. And the reason for that is Zion Williamson would likely be extremely happy to have his running mate back in RJ Barrett with the Pelicans. That's one of the main things that New York Knicks fans have been selling a lot of New Yorkers in why the New York Knicks would do a deal for Zion, because of the relationship RJ has with Zion. So because of that, I think that same relationship is why the Pelicans would do the deal. Because if anything else, it would keep your star, who quote unquote may be disgruntled and not happy there, it would probably make him a little bit more happy to have one of his best friends and former teammates on the team with him. And not only that, you could make the argument that RJ Barrett could be unlocked playing with his former teammate. My only argument to that is, how many games are they going to play together? Because Zion Williamson, as good as he's always been, and the flashes that he showcased, It's never been consistent because he's always been hurt, injured, overweight, or some type of issue has plagued him. But going back to this trade, I still don't feel that the Pelicans would do this deal for Brandon Ingram. I don't think that they believe in RJ Barrett that much. The only reason I think they might even consider it is if Zion pushed them for it, or if they believe getting RJ makes Zion happy and leads him to stay with the Pelicans. That's probably the only way I'd see them doing it. But I don't think that Griffin would potentially do this deal because he would want a lot more for Brandon Ingram than just this. And I'm pretty sure other teams would give him way more than this for a player like Brandon Ingram. So that's also something to consider. But I'm also going to go back to the Knicks. I don't think the Knicks would do this deal. Leon Rose would never overpay for a player. That's been his MO since he's been in the league with the New York Knicks as president. I don't think Leon Rose would make a trade for a player that doesn't fit this New York Knicks team and that would trade away a key piece to what the New York Knicks are doing if it wasn't for a superstar type of player that would put this team in contention. As good as Brandon Ingram is, I don't think his addition to the New York Knicks would put them in contention in the East. I think you'd have to make other moves even after you got Ingram to put the Knicks in contention. And that's the issue right there. And that's why I think Leon Rose wouldn't do a deal like this and why the Knicks would avoid a deal like this. Because if the New York Knicks are trading RJ Barrett, that likely means they're getting a superstar in return because that's what Leon Rose is going to want back in any type of deal that includes RJ Barrett. That's going to put them in contention for a championship season after season after season. And I'm not saying that their roster won't be fully complete after that point, but they won't have to make massive moves to complete it. They might have to add some key bench players and other players to the roster to fill it out. But other than that, they would have a set core to move forward with. That's what Leon Rose is hoping for because he doesn't want the Knicks to be good for 1 year. He wants the Knicks to be good for years and years and years. That's what he's looking for, but he doesn't want to overpay to get it. If you like this video, go ahead and leave a comment below, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.